think our book's about?
Cat.
You think it's about cats? Hannah, you think it's about cat? Who do you think Charlie Anderson is?
A cat.
You think it's the cat? You think it's the cat, Bentley? Here's the back of the book. There's another picture. What's on there, Striker?
Cat.
The cat. So the author is Barbara Abercrombie, which means she wrote the words. And the illustrator is Mark Graham. Let's see what our book's about. Charlie Anderson. One cold night, a cat walked out of the woods, up the steps, across the deck, and into the house where Elizabeth and Sarah lived. There's the cat.
Yeah, he was cold.
Was he cold? That could be. He curled up next to the fireplace to get warm. He watched the 6 o'clock news on TV. He tasted their dinner. He tried out their beds. He decided to stay, and the girls named him Charlie. Every morning, Charlie disappeared into the woods again. And there he went out the door, and the girls are watching from the window as he goes back to the woods.
He will be cold again.
You think he'll be cold? At night when he came home, Elizabeth brushed him clean, fed him dinner, and made a space for him at the foot of her bed. He liked Elizabeth's bed the best. Sometimes she would wake up in the middle of the night and hear him purring in the dark. What do you think it means when he's purring, Hannah?
He likes the bed.
What do you think, Hannah?
He likes the bed.
He likes the bed. He's happy.
Mhm.
Is he happy? Sarah called him baby and dressed him up in doll clothes. Oh my goodness. Look, Striker. She put him in doll clothes. Do you think the cat likes the doll clothes?
No.
Yeah? No? Maybe. When it snowed, Elizabeth and Sarah's mother heated Charlie's milk before he left for the woods. So she heated his milk so he'd be nice and warm when he left to go in the woods. He grew fatter and fatter, and every day he purred louder and louder. On weekends, the girls stayed with their father and stepmother in the city. They wanted to bring Charlie with them, but their mother said he'd miss the woods. Charlie's a country cat, she told him. So the girls have 2 houses. They have one house, and they live out with their mom, and then on the weekends, they have another house that they go and stay with their dad and their stepmom. One stormy night, Charlie didn't come home. Elizabeth and Sarah stayed out on the deck and called his name. But no Charlie. Where was he? Why wouldn't he come out of the woods? Was he all right? Where do you think he is? You think he's in the woods, Striker? Where do you think Charlie went?
Lost.
Where?
Maybe he's lost.
You think he's lost? Yeah? Where do you think, Hannah? Where do you think Charlie went? In the woods, and he's lost? He couldn't find his way home. All night Elizabeth listened to the rain beating on the roof and the wind rattling the windows. Was he cold? Was he hurt? Where was Charlie? Was she worried about him? Yeah, she was worried. She thought something might happen, you're right. In the morning, Elizabeth and Sarah looked for him. They asked the lady down the road if she'd seen their cat. She said no, and offered them cookies, but they were too worried to eat anything, even her chocolate chip cookies. They went to the new house on the other side of the woods. Have you seen our cat? They asked. His name is Charlie. He's very fat and he has gray striped fur. We have a cat with gray striped fur, said the man. But his name's not Charlie, it's Anderson. He's upstairs asleep on our bed. They heard a meow, and down the stairs came a very fat cat with gray striped fur. Charlie, Sarah and Elizabeth cried. No, that's Anderson, said the woman. We've had him for 7 years. Right, Anderson? He looked at her and began to purr. Where do you think Charlie was going at night? Well, look at, he's at their house. Do you think he was going to their house when he'd get up in the morning? Maybe he's staying at 2 houses? But it's Charlie, Sarah said. He looked at her and purred louder. Is he ever here at night? Elizabeth asked. Anderson is a hunter, said the man. He prowls the woods at night. Charlie sleeps in my bed at night, said Elizabeth. He leaves for the woods after breakfast. Anderson comes home just in time for breakfast, said the woman. He leaves right after dinner. They all looked at the cat. He sat at their feet. He's a very happy, very fat cat. They call him Charlie Anderson now. So at night, he'd come to the girls' house and he'd have dinner and he'd sleep in their bed and have breakfast, and then he'd go to the woods. And then during the day, he'd come to the couple's house and they'd feed him breakfast again, so he'd get 2 breakfasts. And then he'd get dinner again before he went back to the girls' houses. So he had 2 houses to live in. Sometimes in bed at night, Elizabeth asks him, "Who do you love, Charlie Anderson?" And she can hear him purring in the dark. Just like Elizabeth and Sarah, Charlie has 2 houses, 2 beds, 2 families who love him. He's a lucky cat. So how many houses does Charlie have?
2.
2 houses. Whose houses does he live at? What's one house he lives at, Hannah? With the girls? And then what's the other house he lives at? Do you remember? With the couple? Right here?
Yes.
So he spends the night with the girls
And
and the day with this couple that lives across the forest.
their owners.
Yep. See, they're the owners, but they're sharing him with the girls. Because he likes the girls too. Is it nice to have 2 houses to go to?